All right, guys, welcome back to another video on MMAUnhinged. Today we are joined by UFC Featherweight. Fought on the weekend against Gabriel Benítez, and they put on an absolute show. Thank you so much for joining me, Billy Quarantillo. It's an absolute pleasure. I'm excited to talk to you today. How have you been?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. You had a hard fight against Gabriel Benítez on the weekend. It was a tough one. In round one, you knocked him down, hunted for that finish. Unfortunately, it didn't come, but in the round two, it was very close, a fantastic, fun round. And then that round three, he dropped you, and then you came back and you got the finish. Talk to us about how you would, rate your own performance on the weekend.
Yeah, I kind of expected, Benitez is a super tough Mexican fighter. They're as tough as they come. And I was hoping, you always hope for the best and expect the worst. I was hoping for, like, right before the fight, I thought to myself, all right, go out there, get the knockdown, take his back and choke him. And I did the first part almost perfectly, but I wasn't able to get the choke. I wasn't able to get the rear naked choke. I wasn't able to take him out. And then it turned into more of that dogfight that I was expecting of, he's just super tough. He was hard to put away. He landed some really good shots on me. I landed some good shots on him. I was able to take him down over and over again, which was good. And then that takedown in the third round, I broke him open with a huge elbow. And I kind of smelt blood in the water and went in and got the finish.
Yeah, and the way you got the finish, it was like a weird position. It was a weird way for the fight to end, and not really expected it to be finished in that position. Did you feel like the finish was near when you was on his back?
Honestly, I didn't. No one ever expects to finish a fight like that. When I took his back, I was looking for the choke, and I was doing what I'm supposed to do, which I was throwing some punches to help set open those chokes. But I did notice he was bleeding all over the place. So when I was punching him, the ref was like, all right, you got to defend yourself. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to stop the fight. So if you notice it, the ref's like, you got to defend yourself. And then when I hear that, I threw like 50 punches to finish it. So he kind of gave us that warning that I was getting close to finishing it, and I took advantage of it.
Yeah, going back to the start of the first round, when you was knocked down momentarily, was you hurt badly, or was it just a little bit of a stun?
I wasn't hurt badly, and I was a little bit off balance, and he just tagged me with a good punch. But it wasn't one of those where I was like, I can do like grab onto him and relax for a second, or like I wasn't like super dizzy. It was just one of those like kind of heating, like throwing punches. He lands, boom, and I hit the ground. I noticed, I knew right away that he dropped me, and then in my head I was like, all right, well, just defend yourself and you get back to your feet. And that's exactly what happened. I felt like I was gonna be able to triangle choke him. He kind of came into it. I threw up the triangle, and then he jumped away right away. And at that point, I knew I was going to be fine. I got right back up, and we got right back to work.
Yeah, you got right back to work, and you took the takedown, you got the finish, and this was the first time in your UFC career where you were coming off a loss, and it was against Gavin Tucker. You came into this fight off a loss, but you performed well. You got the win. How did it feel coming off a loss, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, it was definitely motivational. In this sport, as you've probably heard a zillion times, that you're only as good as your last fight. Every interview that I was doing was like, oh man, like you're coming off a loss. You're coming off your first loss. You lost your last fight, that kind of stuff. So it was just a long 7 months of not only hearing about that from the people interviewing me, but just in my head, knowing that I came off a loss. But I kept it in perspective. I knew I was killing it before then. I was on an 8-fight MMA streak with one pro boxing match. So in my opinion, I was on a 9-fight winning streak. So I took everything that happened in the loss, and it motivated me. I did everything right for this fight. I ate super clean. I was on weight before I went to sleep on Thursday night. So I was on weight way ahead of time. My conditioning was the best it's ever been. And, that 7 months off helped me get to the level that I'm at now. And I expect to be at an even higher level in November.
Yeah, during this fight, you did suffer a cut above just below your eyebrow, and you put on Instagram that happened in sparring a month prior to the fight. Could you let us know what happened in sparring, and could that put you out for time, or does it seem okay now?
Yeah, it'll be fine now, because I won't I plan on not getting punched in the face for at least another probably 3 weeks. But yeah, no, it actually happened 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago. I was sparring this kid. He was actually a really good lefty boxer. He was a good little striker. And he was giving me a perfect look. So I was thankful that he was there, and we were striking with each other. Neither of us were wearing headgear, and that was totally my fault. Because usually when you get closer to these fights, at least one person wears a headgear because you're bound to hit heads and stuff like that. And it was righty on lefty, and I ended up getting a takedown. And when I took him down, basically he went down, and my head kept going. My eye hit his head, and then I brought it up, basically just a headbutt, on the way down from the takedown. And then I got up, and it was just leaking right away. I knew it right away, and out of my coach and everything were he was like, you got to get this stitched up right away. So I went within 2 hours, I had stitches in it already. And some people, everyone was just basically obviously it's your call, but they were telling me what they would do. A lot of guys said, they would pull out of the fight. Some people said, don't take the fight. Let's push it back. But I knew we had that set date. I know I have my honeymoon set date. So I just wanted to get in there, and it's already been 7 months. So I was like, let's just risk it, because maybe it gets cut open again, which it did. But that's why I knew I had to get off to a fast start, get up there, do a fast start, try to finish him early, because I knew I was going to be bleeding in this fight.
Yeah, we were talking off air before we start the interview. You also talked about your tongue as well. Talk to us when that happened in the fight, and did that kind of put you off in during the fight?
No. So yeah, what we were saying was I have this huge gash, I don't know if you can see it here in the side of my tongue. I don't know when that happened. It's happened to me before in sparring. So, it's a little bit common because your bottom jaw doesn't have the mouthpiece in. Yeah. So, you're the top mouthpiece, but if your tongue ever gets caught in between there, you can bite it. And he must have punched me, and it put my tooth right through my tongue. So there's a huge gash in the side of my tongue. So I haven't been able to enjoy all the really delicious food. We had a great steak right after the fight, but it was so salty. It was, deliciously salty, but all that salt was going into that cut, and it was bleeding still. So all the food that I've eaten so far, it's been pretty painful. It's just now healing up, but I don't know when it happened. It's just part of the fight game, I guess.
Well, I hope you recover soon, and see you back in the octagon soon. You said you wanted MSG. Yep. Hopefully, if that does happen next. You also said that you would like to fight Charles Rosa. You want a Boston, Boston versus Buffalo rivalry. Yeah. Why is it that you want Charles Rosa next?
Well, Charles was I never think about people to call out, because it's just not my style necessarily, but I do get it. They want to build fights, they want to sell fights. So Rosa was just one of the guys that is in there. And the reason why is because I think I just remember his fight from a few weeks ago. So maybe a couple of weeks ago. So I know that he probably will want to fight around that time period. But it doesn't have to be Rosa. Alex Caceres would be a great fight. He's something that I've been mentioning in interviews today, because he's on a 4-fight winning streak. He's been fighting for a long time. But either way, no matter who it could be a number of 10, 15 different guys. Whoever they give me, though, I'm just hoping for that big fan fight, and give me enough time to prepare for it. And I just can't wait to put on another show. This is it's such an adrenaline rush to me. It's the best job I ever had, and I'm gonna keep striking when the iron's hot and make a run for this. The top of the group, the top 10, top 5, and then the championship.
Well, you're an absolute shark tank of division, 145-pound division at the moment. Arguably, it's probably never ever looked better. It's full of prospects, full of elite level fighters, and there's 2 names that you mentioned there that you'd like to possibly match up next to Alex Caceres and Charles Rosa. They're both MMA veterans, fought in the UFC for a long time. How would you see yourself match up against them two?
Yeah, and I think you nailed it. Those are, I think, the type of fights that they would be interested in me taking. What I'd be interested in, guys who've had 10 UFC fights. I just beat Mowgli, who's had 10 UFC fights. These guys have even more than that. So these are the veterans that are next up. They're ahead of me because they've been in the UFC longer. They have more wins than me in the UFC. But they're guys that you would probably have to beat to get into that top 15 range. And I don't want to be one of those fighters that starts calling out guys in the top 3 or top 5 right away. I think I still need a little bit more exposure. I want to be a very popular fighter when I'm fighting those guys. But if they want me to fight one of those guys, I know I'm ready for it. I believe in myself. I believe in my tools. I'm in my prime right now. So whoever they give me, expect a dogfight.
You mentioned Mowgli there, Gabriel Benítez, his nickname. We'll quickly go back to that fight. It's been said in the past by his coach, Javier Mendez, that he's the hardest kicker he's felt in MMA. Did you feel that on the weekend?
No, I was, I had like literal nightmares getting ready for like those left kicks. Like I was getting my liver ready. I was doing ab workouts every single day, getting ready for those body shots. And so what happened was his last fight against Justin James, he did a great job just kicking the crap out of his legs and his body and everything. And Justin James didn't throw back any kicks, and he also didn't check one kick. So I knew he was going to come with an inside low kick like right away. So I was preparing for that, and he threw it and I checked it. And he had that look in his face. Like it happens in sparring all the time. Like when you check a kick and the person just kind of gets like a serious look. And if you watch the tape, I check it and I smile at him because he knew I checked it. And I'm like, that definitely hurt you. Like that did not feel good at all. And because basically all I did was turn my shin. So he basically hit like the hard part of my shin. So I checked his kick right away. And then he really loads up on those kicks, and I got out of the way of the first 2. So he didn't land any kicks on me until after I already like dropped him. And there wasn't as much on it at all. Like he was already kind of worn out after that first exchange. So when he was throwing those kicks, he threw a couple body kicks and one head kick. I blocked all of them, and I was pleasantly surprised that they weren't as crazy dynamite as what I was expecting. And a lot of that just has to do with how the fight was going.
Yeah, it was an absolute dogfight, and the third round was absolutely incredible. Coming back after getting knocked down and eventually getting the finish. Are these the type of fights that you want to be in, these sort of dogfights, or are you looking for the finishes?
Yeah, I'm looking for the finishes. It's not as easy as you think to finish these guys early in the UFC. Everyone goes in these fights there's a lot of money on the line, and you're training hard for these fights, man. So I would love to go out there, and I would have loved to get the knockdown and the rear naked choke right away. But it is what it is. I don't want the dog. I mean, I want exciting fights no matter what. If I can get a couple clean victories on my way to these top fights, that'd be lovely. But I'm expecting, I know what I signed up for. I get like the same sense of soreness almost every fight. Like my legs are always banged up. My hands are banged up. My elbows, are all scraped up. So I'm used to this soreness. So if this keeps happening, I'm just blessed to not have any serious injuries coming after these fights. So if I get in these dog fights, I'm prepared for it, and I'll keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, as the famous saying goes, you don't get paid for overtime. You're looking to get in there and get out.
Exactly.
Moving on to some more fun questions. So we'd have to talk about fighting. I know the fighters like to have a little bit of break about that, a little bit of normality. There is a photo that you shared on Instagram before fight week. It might have been day 2 in quarantine, and it blew up on MMA Twitter because you looked extremely like Dominic Cruz. When I saw the first photo, and I was like, "Is that Dominic Cruz?" And I realized it was you. It's Billy Quarantillo. I was like, oh my God. Did you see this resemblance on the photo? Or?
I mean, I guess after, because you're right, on MMA Twitter, if you like scroll down, they're like Dominic Cruz. And what's the funniest thing? And you can ask Matt Frivola about this. So yesterday after the fight, yesterday morning in Vegas, we were walking through the hotel, and with like the MGM, and I got the stitches on, so like people are kind of giving us looks, and we go sit down for breakfast. And one person already recognized me, like, "Oh, Billy, like great fight, I'm a fan." And then we sit down, and the server comes up to us, and she goes, "Can I ask you something?" And I'm thinking like she watched my fight. She goes, "Is your name Dominic?" And me and Matt just started like dying laughing. I was like, "No, I'm not Dominic Cruz," but she's like, "Well, what's your name?" She's like, "Oh, I'll follow you, Billy." But it was just so funny how, I don't know. I guess we're just like white dudes who, have like spiked up hair and stuff. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it was interesting and funny because when I saw that photo, I was like, Jesus, that it's incredible how much you look alike. And for that lady who did mistakenly got you
Yeah, you
wrong,
got
I
me.
can understand that because it would, if she doesn't watch MMA or she did, but it would be hard to discount the
Know
two.
the
And
difference.
I would
Yeah.
probably get you wrong here. You two look very, very similar. I would like to see a picture of you two together. That would be quite funny. But
I'll work on it.
yeah, we'd
I'll
have
work
to
on the
get that.
Dominic Cruz pick.
Yeah, all right. Some quick fire questions before I let you
Okay.
go. If you could have one fighter from outside the UFC, 145 pounder, to come over to the UFC, who would you choose?
Ooh, like for me to fight.
For you to fight or to be in division, and any name you want, or
Huh.
anything you want.
Okay, so for 145, not that I want to fight him because he was my teammate on The Ultimate Fighter, but Tan Lee, I think, is one of the best 145ers in the world. He's the one FC champion now, and he was on my season, The Ultimate Fighter. His striking is just phenomenal if you've ever seen it. And I think he kind of got he was one of the guys that they missed on the Contender Series. He had a gorgeous knockout. They didn't sign him, but things really worked out for him because he ended up being the 145-pound champion. Another guy I would say is Gary Tonin, who's in that same division in one. I just think he's one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world. It'd be fun to see. There's so many high-level matchups for him, and he's just a competitor. He's, like I said, one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world, and really fun to watch.
Yeah, who would you like to fight?
A 145er I would like to
Yeah,
fight
that you
who's
could bring
not
over.
who's not in the UFC. I don't know if they both are, but probably one of the Pitbull brothers, because they're always like, "Oh man, like the UFC guys aren't that good and this and that." It's like, come on, dude. Like you know what it is.
Yeah, all right. So moving on. The top three movies of all time.
Top three movies of all time. All right. I've been on a real gangster movie kick, and I think Goodfellas is probably my favorite movie. So we'll go Goodfellas. Uh, if we're keeping it gangster, I would say Scarface, probably number two. And I've been also watching, and I know I'm sure you're an English guy. Love Guy
Ah,
Ritchie movies. So I would throw Snatch number three.
yeah, I am an English guy. You got that one correct. We thought it was coming home, but it didn't end up coming home. But we move. I'm not too sure
Yeah.
if you know what I'm talking about, but the
Yes, I
Euros.
do.
Yeah, yeah.
I do. I
But
do. I do.
how did America get on? By the way, I know they had their own tournament. I think it might have been the Copa America. I didn't really keep up with that one, but we had
Yeah.
the Euros. Did
I
they get
don't
on well?
I don't honestly, I don't follow soccer at all. I don't even follow like I grew up watching like football and hockey. And now it's pretty much just MMA. I follow MMA and I have to study it so much. I don't even follow our sports as much, but I will say this that this tournament was shown more than the American tournaments. Like I heard more about this, like it's coming home, like Italy and all these great countries going at it. So it's always good. I love the competitiveness, but when I'm in training camp, I really don't watch like other sports really.
Yeah, even though we did lose, it was one of the greatest months of my life. I had so many memories. We made it all the way to the final.
That's
First
awesome.
time in like 30 years or something like that. It was crazy, but it was a great experience. But we move on. We got the World Cup next year. We could
Yep.
potentially come up against America, and that'll be interesting to see. But moving back to the movie question before we got off track, if you could have one character in your corner for your fight, who would you like to choose?
One character in my fight, or one maybe like a Robert De Niro or like Sylvester Stallone. Those guys would be cool. That's just off the top of my head. I'm sure there's a ton of guys. Maybe Al Pacino. Those guys would all be good to have in my corner, I guess.
Yeah, you mentioned that, but before the movie, after the movie question, that you were a football fan. I presume you mean American football. I'm sorry, but
Yeah. Oh yeah.
uh, who do you support in football?
Oh yeah. Like American football.
Yeah, yeah.
The Buffalo Bills all day. I grew up about 20 minutes from the stadium. I went to all the games as a kid, just like that whole like Bills Mafia thing. There's just a bunch of crazy fans. I lived in Tampa for 10 years, but I'm still super loyal to the Bills, like Buffalo Bills all day. That's like really the only team that I try to watch as much as I can. I usually catch them every Sunday.
I wish I knew more about American football, but my knowledge is just not as strong. So I'm sorry about that. Are they getting on well in what would you call it? The conference?
Yeah, they went to they won the AFC last year, or they were basically in the game to go to the Super Bowl. So like they basically came in like tied for third or fourth place. You know what I mean? Like the top four teams, they got all the way down to the top four. But then this year they signed most of their players, so it should be a good year this year.
Well, that's not bad, right? Third or fourth.
Yeah, they made it to the final four out of 32 teams, so it's all good.
Yeah, well, I hope they do better next year, and you can celebrate maybe a win at the Super Bowl or whatever happens your way. But thank you for joining me, Billy. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you had a blast, and the floor is yours. Shout out your sponsors or shout out your team, whatever you want to do.
Oh man, just thank you so much for having me. Just follow me Instagram and Twitter. I try to get back and communicate with my friends and fans as much as I can. So yeah, thanks for having me, man. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Billy Quarantillo, everybody. Thank you.
All right, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for the time, and have a good rest of your day.
All right, brother. Take care.
Yeah.